Jack had always been a man of curiosity, a trait that served him well as a freelance photographer. His latest trip to Japan had been a mix of planned shoots and spontaneous adventures, but nothing could have prepared him for the events of this evening. As the closing hour of the Osaka Skyview Tower approached, the once crowded observation deck had emptied out, leaving Jack with a rare moment of solitude. He'd heard whispers from fellow travelers about the incredible views from the tower's bathrooms, a peculiar detail that piqued his interest. Determined to capture every unique angle of the city, he decided to investigate. The men's room lived up to the hype. Large, floor-to-ceiling windows offered an unfiltered view of Osaka's sprawling cityscape, a glittering mosaic of lights stretching to the horizon. Jack snapped a few photos, satisfied with his finds. But his curiosity wasn't sated. He wanted to see if the view from the women's bathroom offered an equally captivating scene. He approached the door to the women's room, hesitating for a moment. "Hello? Anyone in here?" he called out, his voice echoing slightly in the empty corridor. Receiving no response, he cautiously pushed the door open and stepped inside. The scene that greeted him was nothing short of surreal. A large window was shattered, shards of glass scattered across the floor, glinting like diamonds in the dim light. By the shattered window stood a woman in profile, her hair streaked with ethereal black and silver strands fluttering in the breeze. She had a slim build and ghostly pale skin that, in the moment, seemed almost translucent, as if the shock and fear had drained the color from her. She was dressed in a black short pencil skirt and a matching blazer coat, her professional attire contrasting sharply with the disarray of her makeup and the chaos around her. Her shoulders shook with silent sobs, and the remnants of her makeup trailed down her cheeks, telling a story of recent tears. Jack's heart pounded in his chest. He took a step forward, unsure of what to say or do. "Are you all right?" he finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The woman turned slightly, her tear-streaked face revealing a mixture of fear and desperation. Before she could respond, the distant wail of police sirens filled the air, growing louder by the second. Jack's mind raced. How had he not heard the glass shatter? And the most chilling question of all, had someone fallen through the window? The woman's gaze flickered to the door, then back to Jack. "You need to leave," she said, her voice trembling. "They can't find you here." "Why? What happened?" Jack asked, but she shook her head, backing away from him. "Please, just go. Trust me." The urgency in her voice propelled Jack into action. He turned and hurried out of the bathroom, his thoughts a chaotic jumble of confusion and fear. As he reached the emergency exit right by the bathrooms, he glanced back one last time, seeing the woman's silhouette against the shattered window, a lone figure against the backdrop of a city that seemed suddenly alien and threatening. Descending the stairs two at a time, Jack's mind grappled with the surreal encounter. What had he stumbled into? The sirens were almost deafening now. He slipped out the emergency exit, blending into the night as he made his way down the street. His camera, still clutched in his hand, felt heavier than usual. He'd come to Osaka in search of unique perspectives, but what he'd found was a puzzle with pieces that didn't quite fit. As he ducked into a nearby alley, the neon lights casting eerie reflections on the wet pavement, he reviewed the photos he'd taken, hoping for some clue that would make sense of the evening's events. There, in the last shot from the men's room, he noticed something he hadn't seen before. A reflection in the window. Just a faint outline, but unmistakably the figure of a woman with black hair streaked with silver strands. She'd been there all along, watching him. Determined to uncover the truth, Jack knew he couldn't let this mystery go. The woman's haunted eyes and the unanswered questions pulled at him, driving him deeper into a labyrinth of intrigue and danger. If you crave the thrill of mystery and the smooth allure of jazz, hit that subscribe button and light up your notifications like a neon sign on a rainy Tokyo night. Yuto Nakamura, a hiker and photographer from Kobe, had always been drawn to the serene beauty of Japan's untouched landscapes. His latest journey led him to Daisen, a volcanic mountain in Tottori Prefecture. part of the Daisenoki National Park. Known for its lush forests and rich biodiversity, this place blurred the line between the ordinary and the mystical. The climb had been uneventful but enjoyable. Yuto relished the tranquility of the forest, the rustle of leaves underfoot, and the distant calls of birds. There was only one moment that stood out, a rare white fox that scurried away before he could capture its image, disappearing into the underbrush like a ghost. As twilight settled, Yuto set up his camera for a time-lapse, aiming to capture the vast expanse of the forest, the endless sky, and his solitary tent, a mere speck in the frame. The night was unusually bright, illuminated by a full moon so radiant that he had to close the aperture to let less light into the camera, a rare move for nighttime photography. Satisfied with the setup, he retreated to his tent, the forest's nocturnal symphony lulling him into a deep sleep. In the dead of night, a piercing howl jolted Yuto awake. The sound echoing through the trees was eerie and haunting. His heart pounded as he sat up, peering into the moonlit landscape outside his tent. The howl had unsettled him deeply. Trying to shake off the unease, Yuto decided to check his camera. He stepped into the cool night air, eyes scanning the surroundings. The full moon provided enough light to see clearly without a flashlight. The darkness revealed nothing unusual, and his camera remained standing, capturing the night as planned. He sighed with relief and returned to his tent, hoping to find solace in sleep once more. As he was about to drift off, a closer, more piercing howl shattered the silence, followed by aggressive growls and the sounds of a struggle. His heart raced as the growls and rustling continued outside his tent. Yuto lay frozen, the sounds of the fight sending chills down his spine. Minutes passed, and the fight seemed to subside, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. Summoning his courage, Yuto slowly peeked out of his tent. The moonlit night was clear enough to navigate without a flashlight. He scanned the area and saw his camera, previously steady and reliable, knocked over on the ground. Dread pooled in his stomach as he approached the fallen equipment. Yuto picked up the camera and immediately began reviewing the photos on the small screen. The first few frames showed the serene night, stars twinkling against the dark canvas of the sky. Then his breath caught. A large black bear had wandered into the clearing, its presence both majestic and menacing. The bear lingered near his tent, inspecting it with a curious yet dangerous air before it knocked over the camera. He continued scrolling through the images, his fingers trembling slightly. Suddenly, he saw something that made his blood run cold. There, standing at the edge of the clearing, was a woman in a white kimono. One shoulder was bare, revealing skin as pale as moonlight, contrasting sharply with her traditional attire. Her grayish hair was tied in a long ponytail that swayed gently as if touched by an unseen breeze. She stared directly into the lens, her eyes filled with a mix of sorrow and curiosity. To his horror, he noticed a bleeding wound on her exposed shoulder and her feet, crimson against her pale skin. Yuto's mind spun with questions. Who was she? A wandering spirit, a lost soul, or something else entirely? A shiver ran down his spine, the air around him heavy with the weight of the unknown. The woman remained in just a single frame, her presence fleeting, as if she had materialized for the briefest of moments before fading back into the ether. Yuto glanced around, half expecting to see her among the trees, but the clearing was empty, the only movement the gentle sway of leaves. His heart still pounding, Yuto quickly packed his belongings. The sense of being watched intensified, and he knew he couldn't stay any longer. Every sound in the forest seemed to echo with unseen threats. As he looked back one last time, far away, almost out of sight, was the white fox. It seemed like its shoulder and right paw were bleeding. Then, as quickly as it had appeared, it disappeared out of sight. Back in the safety of civilization, the images replayed in his thoughts, each one a piece of a puzzle he couldn't solve. The black bear, the enigmatic woman, they were now part of his story, an unspoken mystery that haunted his every step. Yuto knew he would return to Daisenoki National Park, drawn by the allure of the unknown, seeking answers to the questions that now filled his soul. But for now, he left the forest behind, carrying with him a sense of wonder and a whisper of something beyond the realm of the everyday. Step into the shadows and immerse yourself in a world of midnight Japan tales, where enigmatic stories are narrated with the intrigue and charm of classic detective stories. If you crave the excitement of mystery and the smooth allure of jazz, hit that subscribe button and light up your notifications like a neon sign on a rainy Tokyo night. Whispering silence at the Shinto shrine. The rain had just begun to taper off as Jack Monroe, a seasoned photographer, found himself wandering through the narrow streets of Kyoto. His assignment was simple: capture the essence of the city's ancient beauty. But the damp, glistening cobblestones led him astray, and he stumbled upon a Shinto shrine nestled quietly behind a veil of towering trees. The shrine was a relic of time, its wooden structures weathered but enduring. Jack, ever the opportunist, readied his camera, eager to immortalize the serenity of the moment. He moved with silent purpose, his lens sweeping over the ornate details of the Torii Gate and the intricate carvings of the Honden. As he adjusted his focus, he saw her, a woman standing near the altar, her presence almost ghostly. She was draped in the traditional shozoku worn by Shinto priests. The white fabric, dampened by the rain, clung to her figure like a spectral veil, offering fleeting glimpses of her form beneath, as if she were both there and not, a wraith of wet silk and mist. Despite this, she seemed unfazed, her eyes dark and mysterious, beckoning him closer. Jack's heart skipped a beat. He wasn't one to be easily spooked, but there was something undeniably otherworldly about her. He raised his camera, capturing her in a series of clicks, each shot more mesmerizing than the last. She moved with a grace that seemed almost choreographed. Oddly enough, she was sweeping the steps with methodical precision, an incongruous task given the late hour and the persistent rain. Drawn inexplicably, Jack found himself nearing the altar. He had forgotten the rule: never cross the line between observer and participant. But in the stillness, his hand moved of its own accord. He reached into his pocket, retrieved a 50-yen coin, and dropped it into the offering box, the metallic clink echoing softly in the quiet. He bowed his head, whispering an unbidden prayer to the spirits of the place. When he lifted his head, the woman was gone. Panic flared briefly, replaced by a bewildering calm. Had she been real? He scanned the grounds, but there was no trace of her, no footprints in the damp earth, no rustle of retreating footsteps. Heart pounding, Jack reviewed the photos on his camera. Each image was marred, distorted by streaks of light and dark patches. The shots of the woman were the worst, mere smudges where her figure should have been. He frowned, checking the settings, the battery, the lens. Everything was in order. The corruption seemed deliberate, as if the camera had captured more than it was meant to. The rain began anew, its rhythm a soft percussion against the leaves. Jack slung his camera over his shoulder, his mind a whirl of questions. Had she been a figment of his imagination, a trick of the light and rain? As he walked away from the shrine, the city lights flickering in the distance, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had brushed against something not of this world. His photographs, once meant to capture beauty, now held a mystery he could never hope to unravel. The memory of the woman at the shrine lingered, a haunting presence in the back of his mind. And somewhere in the depths of his camera, amid the corrupted files, lay the evidence of his encounter with the beautiful, ghost-like woman who vanished without a trace.